Hello, class. Welcome to your very first virtual Bible lesson. Are you excited? Oh, wow, I can tell you're very excited with all that cheering. Well, I'm glad you're excited because what we're going to be learning in Bible for the next 2 or 3 weeks is how to be a wise person, how to have wisdom. And there's no greater book in the Bible to learn wisdom from than the book of Proverbs. So this lesson is just going to be an introduction. So we're just going to talk about what the book of Proverbs is about and what is the main message of the book of Proverbs. So let's look at a picture here of a room. Let's say you're in the room. Okay. Let's say you're in this room and there's 2 doors. And everything else is just walls. All right? There's just walls, and the only way out is through one of those 2 doors in front of you. Now, the doors lead to something. Okay? You don't know what's behind the doors. You don't know what those doors lead to, and you have to make a choice between the left door or the right door. Okay, should you go through this one or should you go through this one? Well, it's kind of a hard decision to make, isn't it? Because unless you know what's behind the doors, then how would you know which one to choose? And so what you need to know is you need to know the consequences of going through each door. Okay? The consequences of something is the results of an action. All right? Consequences are the results of an action. All right? So, just in case you're wondering, whenever I repeat something, then it's kind of important, right? And something that you might be able to write down on your reflection sheet. Okay? So, when I repeat something, it's something you may be able to write down on your sheet to help you out a little bit. So, he's trying, or you're trying, to figure out which door to go through. And so you need to figure out what are the results of going through each door. What would happen if you go through the left door? What would happen if you go through the right door? And so let's say, as you go through the left door, let's say you step into the left door, and all of a sudden, you are at the edge of a cliff. Right? You step through the door and you're at the edge of a cliff. Well, that's not very good. Okay, unless you plan on jumping off that cliff, and that would be a very brave thing to do, perhaps foolish thing to do, but probably not the best idea. Right? So going through the left door, maybe not a good consequence. Maybe call that a bad consequence, right? What about the right door? Well, you go through the right door and you step into this beautiful garden with a river of chocolate. A river of chocolate. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty awesome consequence of going through the right door. And I kind of like that idea of going through the right door, of being in this garden full of wonderful, delicious chocolate. That sounds good. So, now that you know the consequences of going through the left door and the consequences of going through the right door, now you can make a decision. A wise decision, right? And so, this is important because everything you do, everything you say, okay, what you think, how you think, what you believe, all these things have consequences. All these things result in other things happening because of what you believe and what you say and what you do. So, for example, let's say you have a set of dominoes, okay? When you push down one domino, it's not just that one domino that falls. The domino after it falls, okay? And the domino next to that domino falls. And the domino next to that domino falls. And the domino next to that domino falls. And the chain reaction, which you could call it, continues until, before you know it, all of the dominoes have fallen, and maybe even fallen on you, if it's in a circle like this. Well, that's a perfect example of how what you do and what you say has consequences. Things happen because of what you do and what you say. So, for example, in the book of Proverbs, it talks about what happens. What are the consequences of becoming a lazy person? Talks a lot about that. It says that lazy people, right? If you become a lazy person, then you end up becoming poor. Okay? Right? If you're lazy and you don't work hard, you could end up becoming poor, not having a lot of money, not getting a good job, because you don't want to do the work to get a good job and to work hard at your job. And so maybe you don't get paid as much as other people. Well, there are other things that the Proverbs talks about. It talks about how a lazy person will end up becoming, well, basically, a failure. They'll fail at things that they do, okay? Anything they try to accomplish, tasks that they try to accomplish, no matter what it is, whether it's in school or in their job or in sports or in maybe even in their friendships. They don't want to work hard to be a good friend. They're lazy at helping people and helping their friends out, whatever. Well, they're going to be a failure. They're not going to be successful at whatever they do because they're lazy. It talks about how lazy people end up having unmet desires. Okay, unmet desires. Now that's a little, maybe you might not understand exactly what that means, but in other words, the lazy person has desires that go unmet, that he can't fulfill because he's too lazy to go after what he wants and to do the work to get what he wants. And so there's all these things that he wants, but he can't get because he's too lazy to work for them. All right, so those are just 3 examples, and there's many more, of consequences of being lazy. And so the book of Proverbs is all about how to make good choices. How to make good choices. How to make choices that result in good consequences. Okay, there's good consequences and there's bad consequences. And Proverbs teaches us wisdom by showing us the consequences of our actions. Once again, wisdom is the ability to make good choices. Okay? Good choices, which results in good consequences. Okay? In having a happy life, a successful life, a life that is full of peace and joy, and not one that is filled with trouble and making enemies and getting into all sorts of trouble with the decisions that you make. So, that is an introduction to the book of Proverbs. Hopefully, you paid attention and you can write down the 3 things that you learned from this video. Remember to do that on the reflection sheet. Okay, so that way I know that you're paying attention when watching the video. So that is an introduction to the book of Proverbs.